Hello and welcome to each of you. Today we at Alexander & Haberman are honored to be hosting Mike Becker to present Social Security planning, the first in our summer speaker series, which also includes taxes and retirement, Roth conversions, the power of zero, a tax planning strategy, and long-term care planning. As we get started, we wanted to say it's great for us to be with so many of you again. Special thanks to all at Alexander & Haberman who made this possible, including Caleb and Joshua, who did a ton of behind-the-scenes work, as well as Zena, Christian, Jackie, and Nicole. We want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are seeing us for the first time and give a big thank you to those who invited you. As we get started, I want to say a little bit about where this came from. After working with clients to take care of their health insurance, Medicare, and group insurance needs, we found that more and more of our clients were asking about things that were impacting their decisions. Things like Social Security, when to retire, if they could retire, how to pay for things like long-term care, or leave a legacy. While I briefly dabbled in financial advising, I no longer practice in many of these areas. Yet I still understand the impact they play in our clients' decisions and lives. Because we've partnered with many financial advisors for a long time, we looked to those advisors to help us present information on these topics. Today's presentation, Social Security Planning, is presented by Mike Becker with Legacy Financial Partners. Mike Becker has been in the financial services industry for over 25 years. He started in the industry right off the college campus. After 6 years of running his financial planning business, he transitioned into sales management. The last 19 years, Mike was in frontline management in Bloomington, Minnesota. Mike has received numerous company and industry awards, and his branch was often recognized as the top branch within his company. In 2013, Mike was recognized by Fonseca, known at the time as Gamma International, with the Brian Early Frontline Excellence Award. Mike has continued to be an active member in Fonseca since joining in 2005. He's been a volunteer on Fonseca's Recognition Committee and their Leaders of Today and Tomorrow Committee. In 2013, Mike was nominated to Fonseca's Board of Directors, at the time Gamma International. In 2021, Mike decided to start a family financial planning business called Legacy Financial Partners, LLC. Legacy Financial Partners works with Securities America, Futurity First Insurance Group, and Senior Market Sales, providing clients financial solutions. Mike specializes in building and implementing financial plans for busy families living in the Midwest, as well as helping retirees with their retirement income plans. When Mike's not working, he enjoys golf, Wisconsin Badger football, and thus a healthy rivalry with U of M alum Joshua, and chasing his 3 kids, all under age 10, around the house, the golf course, and ball fields. Mike has been married to his wonderful wife, Anna, for 13 years. Alexander & Haberman does not practice in the specialties of its speakers, but welcomes them here to speak for the educational benefit of our clients, friends, and guests. Alexander & Haberman is a specialty firm focused on assisting with Medicare Advantage, supplements, and Part D plans, as well as individual and family health insurance on and off exchange, and group benefits including health, dental, vision, and disability. As we get started, I want to say how great it is to be here. We're especially thankful to all who make this possible, including Joshua for dreaming up and developing these series, Caleb and Aaron for setting up and running our technology, Beth with her behind-the-scenes work, and Zena, Christian, Jackie, and Nicole for all they do for our clients. And again, we extend a special welcome to those of you who are seeing us for the first time, and a big thank you to those who invited you. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen and send them to host and panelists. We will address them at the end of this presentation, ensuring anyone who needs to leave at 3 can hear the entire presentation. The Q&A time may extend beyond 3 o'clock. Now, to get us started with today's presentation, it is my honor to introduce Mike Becker.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany, for that warm introduction. I appreciate that. It's good to be back with you, Joshua, Alexander & Haberman team, clients. I've seen a lot of familiar faces already on Zoom, so this is exciting. And Social Security is a topic that there's a lot of interest around. And over the last 27 years, I've felt and heard so much anxiety around this topic of retiring, retirement income, and where Social Security fits into that equation. So this is a topic that we try to help uncover the different ways that you can strategize to really maximize your Social Security benefits. If you've heard us before, it is workshop. We do try to make this as education-based as possible. We're going to talk fast. We're going to cover a lot of content. But as Brittany said, this is the first in the series of 5 workshops that are coming up. And we'll talk a little bit about these as we go through the presentation today. But we've got some great topics, a little more broad with taxes and retirement, a little more narrow in Roth conversions, which is a tax planning strategy, Power of Zero tax planning strategy, and then specifically hybrid products within the long-term care space. So really good stuff that's going to help you in preparation for your retirement journey. And of course, we just got off of a series, our spring series, that covered awesome topics like reverse mortgages, aging, annuities, and estate planning. And all these are recorded, so feel free to chat if you'd like one of those recordings or reach out to us later. The disclaimer before we get up and started is I am not affiliated with the federal government, the IRS, the Social Security system, or any other federal program. I'm simply a local business owner and practitioner that enjoys helping people navigate through the retirement world. So let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about what Social Security is, where does it fit into your overall retirement plan, understanding your benefits and your claiming options, the impact of continuing to work on those Social Security benefits, and then other claiming considerations, a little bit on Medicare and a little bit on taxes. And this is a time in life in preparing for retirement where there's a lot of confusion. We hear a lot of numbers and acronyms, numbers like 70 and a half and 72 and 65, 67, 62. RMD, FRA, there's all these acronyms and numbers that cause so much confusion. Now, I'm not going to necessarily make you all an expert today, but we're going to certainly weave in some of those acronyms and ages to be able to help you navigate things a little bit easier. And when we start thinking about where does Social Security fit, it's one of the social programs, one of the great social programs, Social Security and Medicare. From there, that's the foundation. From there, we have saving and investments, and then more investments, and then we have legacy on top. And that's really the pyramid. But as we really jump back to what are we going to accomplish today, I think this paragraph really encapsulates what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to read this because it's really important. Your choice of when and how to file benefits can have a significant impact on how much guaranteed lifelong income you and your spouse will receive throughout your retirement. That's really what you're going to take away from today's conversation. Because at the end of the day, retirement has 2 outcomes. That's it, 2 outcomes. You're either going to outlive your money or your money will outlive you. And obviously, as savers, as people looking forward to retirement, we want to make sure that our money outlives us. And that's really what we're talking about today. And that foundation of that retirement income is the Social Security, which is a very unique asset. It does 6 very distinct things. And there's a lot of different investments and assets out there, none of which do all 6 of these. Many of them masquerade, do 3, 4 of these things, but this is the only thing that does 6. And if we start left to right, we have lifetime income. There's only 3 things on the planet that provide guaranteed lifetime income as long as you're on the planet. If you're on the planet and 120 years old, you will be receiving a Social Security benefit. Number 2 is the benefits are protected from market volatility. I don't know if you've seen in the market or in the news, the market's been a little volatile this year. And those people collecting Social Security benefits got the same amount this month as they did the last month, and the month before, and the month before. Market does not impact those Social Security benefits. Number 3 is the COLA, or cost of living adjustments. Your Social Security benefits will continue to go up each and every year based on a factor called cost of living. Number 4 is really where the Social Security system shines, is the spousal benefits. We'll spend a lot of time inside the spousal benefits today. Preferential tax treatment. Tons of confusion around if and how Social Security might be taxed. We'll spend some time on that. And then, of course, it's a governmental promise. The government promises that your payments will ultimately be there. And as we really transition to the next part, which is really be appreciating where the Social Security system came from, we like to do a couple polls as we go through this presentation. So we're going to bring up our first poll here in just a moment. And we ask participants if you would humor us and go ahead and participate, and just go ahead and choose any option you feel comfortable with. And the first poll that we're going to bring up here in just a moment, if this works, is when was the Social Security system put into action? So we're going to see if we get that poll up. We'll give it about 5 seconds. Again, as these polls come up, just go ahead and click inside, and then we'll share results. You'll see what other of your friends are thinking as well. And of course, they're not coming up, and that's okay, because I'm prepared to talk about when Social Security started. It started in 1935, and it was part of the New Deal that Roosevelt signed into law. And at that time, what was happening was half of our seniors were in poverty. So there we go, never mind. Thank you for participating, everybody. So look at that, we've got a sharp group here. We had 67% of the participants nailed 1935. I'm surprised number 4, 2021 didn't get any votes. So thank you for participating, and thank you for posting the results. So anyway, the Social Security system, what was happening was many of our seniors were in poverty. So this was a way to lift our seniors out of poverty. And what was created was called a dedicated payroll tax. We'll talk in a moment what a dedicated payroll tax actually is. But it started in 1935. In 1940, the first payment was paid. And there's always a Jeopardy question around who was the first person to get a Social Security benefit. Ida Mae Fuller, you might have recognized that name. She got the first benefit, and her benefit was $22.54. Doesn't sound like a lot. In today's money, it's about $400, a little over $400. But what's interesting about Ida Mae is she lived to the ripe old age of 100. She certainly took more out of the Social Security system than she put in, and that's what it's ultimately about. So where is it today? It started off in 1935. The Social Security system has changed. And what I think is interesting is how was the Social Security system set up? The Social Security system was set up where at that time there were 42 people contributing to the Social Security system for every one person pulling money out. The earliest age you could pull money out of the Social Security system was 65. Life expectancy at that time wasn't even 65, it was 62. But those people that made it to 65 and started collecting benefits, on average, would collect benefits for only 2 years. Was the Social Security system set up initially to be very viable for a long time? The answer is absolutely. Then what happened? Some demographics happened and things changed. And now what does the Social Security system look like? For every 3 people, not 42, contributing to the Social Security system, there's 1 person pulling it out. The earliest you can now pull out of Social Security is age 62, not 65. And if you start collecting benefits, on average, you're going to collect benefits for 21 years, not 2. Does the Social Security system look a little bit different today than it did back in 1935 when it was started? Absolutely. What does it look like today? It basically covers everybody. There's over 50 million people participating in the Social Security system. That's what it looks like today. But with that demographic change, what happens is there's a lot of confusion and questions around, is it going to be there for me? And I think this is a cute cartoon. We have Grandma and Grandpa, or Mom and Dad in the golf cart saying, haven't you young people gotten jobs? And the other one saying, hurry up, someone needs to keep funding the Social Security and Medicare system. And that's how it ultimately works. That's a dedicated payroll system. We hear the media talk about Social Security system going broke. It's not going to go broke because it's a dedicated payroll tax. Each and every one of us is contributing on our payroll statement says FICA, F-I-C-A. That is code for Social Security and Medicare contributions. You make contributions, your employer matches those contributions. But what this does is this little cartoon shares that there's a lot of confusion. The young people, is it going to be there? How am I going to handle this? And then we've got those in retirement saying, is it going to be there for the rest of my life? And this is really interesting because, again, I hear this question all the time, is it going to be there? Because of all the economic changes, the demographic changes, influences, lots of things that have changed, there's a real question around that. When the media talks about what's going to happen with Social Security, there's a very real concern that those benefits are going to go down. There's a Social Security trustee group, and they put out a report every year. The most recent report says that the Social Security system in 2035 will have to change. Remember, dedicated payroll tax, money's going in. So what happens if Congress does nothing between now and 2035? And is Congress pretty good at doing nothing? Congress is pretty good at doing nothing. If they do nothing, in 2035, everyone will collect 77 cents on the dollar. Not just new people coming in, but those people in Social Security. So it's a very real concern about what's happening. Now, there is some innovation in the financial services space around how do we think and protect around that, but it's definitely a real concern that we have to think about. Politically, it's very challenging when you have 60 million voters not wanting their Social Security changed. But moving over into where does Social Security actually fit, for all of us, it's a piece of the pie. Maybe it's the green piece, maybe it's the yellow piece, maybe it's the orange piece. On average, Social Security replaces about 40% of pre-retirement income. What I think is interesting is half of the Americans, Social Security represents 50%. What's scary is 25% of those, of the Social Security population, it's 90% of their income. 1 in 4 people on Social Security, it's a lion's share of their income. So that's why it's really, really, really important on that right side to make sure that we are saving in those other vehicles and in company benefits and annuities and investments and savings accounts, and all those things are good to keep us from being in that 1 in 4 that's essentially living and completely dependent on the Social Security system. So where does it really fit? What does it actually look like? Well, if we just take $2,000, the average benefit in the household, husband, wife, is about $2,600 a month. So if we take $2,000 a month times 12 months is $24,000 a year, times 30 years is over $700,000. We do Social Security timing reports, and I will tell you that over and over and over, those Social Security timing reports with husband, wife show $1.2, $1.5, $1.8 million of income to the household over someone's lifetime. That is a significant, significant asset. Well, how do we determine those benefits? There's 2 main factors. We're going to start to really dive into the different factors. The 2 main factors, number 1 is the earnings history, and number 2 is the age when you elect benefits. We'll explain that in a little bit more. But to be eligible in the first place, you have to have 40 credits, which is about 10 years worth of work to be eligible. And then if you're taking notes at home, you might want to write down PIA, which is your primary insurance amount. And that's sort of your baseline number. Everything works off of that PIA, which is kind of a sticker amount that you'll receive in benefit. What's interesting is the earnings history, in order to factor in your benefit, the Social Security system takes your top 35 earnings years. Well, if you start at 17 or 18, that makes you out in the workforce for probably about 50 years. You can have a few blow-up years, but if you got 35 really good years, you can really maximize your Social Security benefits. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk a little more about that later. But how do you determine what those benefits are? The Social Security system will help you. We used to receive these paper statements. A writer-downer for you is to make sure you go on www.ssa.gov. and make sure you pull up your most recent statement or create an account on the Social Security system. That way you can access your reports anytime. But access your report. Why is it important? Number 1 is your benefits, the numbers on those statements get more and more accurate as you get closer and closer to retirement. But the second thing, as I said earlier, there's over 240 million accounts in the Social Security system. So when you pull up your statement, it'll actually show your earnings history. So best practice is pull it up yearly and look at last year's earnings to see if it's accurate. With 240 million accounts, is there a chance that there could be a mistake? Absolutely. And when those precious 35 years are put into the formula, you'll want to make sure the formula is correct. So hopefully you wrote that down. Okay, we are going to go into another poll, we hope. And this poll is interesting because this is really good for all of the participants because it sort of helps us all understand what is the thought process coming into today's conversation. So the poll question is around the idea of, if we pull it up, maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't, but coming into today's workshop, what was your plan for electing benefits? Were you going to take it early? Were you going to take it at full retirement age, which is sort of your baseline number? Were you going to delay it? Or you have no clue? And I'm not saying you had a final decision, because that's why you're here today, but if you had an inkling of what you are going to do, what was your plan coming into today's conversation? If you go ahead and confidentially check a box, it makes it interesting for us. And again, you could get to see, oh, look at this. This is a sharp group. So we have only 1 in 12 was planning on taking it early, and there's nothing wrong with it. 3 out of 12 full retirement, and then 8 out of 12 were planning on delaying. And everybody has some kind of an idea. So thank you everybody for participating in that poll. So let's go more specifically into that, and hopefully we'll reinforce your thoughts, or potentially we'll change your thoughts as well. So this acronym FRA, full retirement age, is again that baseline. It's really tied in with that PIA. And I like what this says. This says 67 is the new 65. If you remember with your maybe parents, certainly your grandparents, their primary Social Security date was age 65. Well, back in 1983, Reagan signed into law that we're going to change it, and they were going to raise Social Security FRA from 65 to 67. I can't believe I still feel like I remember that. I was technically alive and 10 years old when that change happened. But that was happened a long time ago, and that impacts when people collect their full retirement benefits. So you can see, based on your birth year, it tells you when your full retirement benefits are. So as an example, in 1956, if you're born in 1956, your full retirement benefits are 66 and 4 months. Anybody born after 1960, like myself, it's age 67. So that's important when we get into the delaying and taking early. It's all based on this FRA, or full retirement age. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time here because I want you to take away what's happening mechanically. And again, the fact that 8 out of 12 are thinking about delaying tells me you probably have a pretty good handle on this slide, but I want to reinforce this. So we have the 3 categories. We have the FRA in the middle, and for most of us on the call, it's probably somewhere between age 66 and 67. That's the baseline number. If we decide to take the money early or elect our benefits early, that's the red, we ultimately have a reduction in benefits. And write this word down: permanent reduction. That formula is, let's call it about 1/2 of 1%, 5/12 of 1% for 36 months, blah, blah, blah. It's about 1/2 of 1% is the reduction permanently. Then we have the delayed. So if you wait every month you delay after your full retirement, you get a credit, which is about 2/3 of 1%. Over a course of a year, it's about 8%. So somebody who has an FRA age 67 can collect delayed income credits for 3 years, 8%. That's 24% more in benefits permanently. And that's really huge when we start to talk about the spousal. I think this is really interesting. I normally start this conversation telling people, or telling the group, that I feel most people, many people, make the Social Security decision, early, full, or delayed, very passively. And why do I say that? Because when we're looking at the screen, 57% of the population elects early. Now, just because they elect early doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. In fact, when the herd goes one way, do the opposite. That tells me there's a lot of reasons why people do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what that tells me is some of those people, if they go through what we go through today, may make a different decision. It tells me that, again, maybe some of those people are making those decisions very passively. It's really interesting. So really what it comes down to is you either get a whole bunch of benefits if you elect early, or if you delay, you get fewer benefits. They're just bigger checks. The question always comes up is, okay, what's sort of the break even? When is it such that it's good to take it early or delay? And that's really a mortality question. And by and large, if you die at about life expectancy, we'll call it early 80s, it doesn't matter too much which option you make. Again, if you die about normal life expectancy, it doesn't really matter. But I think what's really interesting is mortality is factored and calculated a couple different ways. The mortality that we often cite is the great mortality that has things like infant mortality and accidents, and the aggregate tells us that we're somewhere in those early 80s as our life expectancy. But there's another chart that says if you get to 65, there's another life expectancy table. Now, which one's more relevant to this discussion today? Obviously, it's those that make it to age 65. So I think we have another poll question here, because I think this is also really interesting. Because the poll question says if we get a husband and wife that make it to 65, there's a 1 in 2 chance that one of those people will make it to what age? So if you got husband, wife, make it to age 65, one of those, there's a 50% chance that one of those will make it to what age? If you go ahead and check a box, we appreciate it. We're having some fun here. 1 out of 2. Okay, so hopefully we'll get the answer here in a little bit. I'll actually jump to the answer. If we go ahead and take the poll away, the answer is 93. It feels like somebody's cheated and looked at my slides. Spot on. So that is the answer, is 93, right? There's a big difference between 83 and 93. But this is really interesting, right? Because you can just see right here, male, a 1 in 4 chance or 50% chance. I think this is fascinating. Female that makes it to 65 has a 1 in 4 chance of making it to 96. Again, big difference between 83 and 96. The ladies out there, this is a really big decision when you start talking about guaranteed lifetime income, of which Social Security is a part of it. The second big question that I often hear is, well, what if I want to continue working? Younger people, we all think we're going to work well into our retirement years. Not everybody has that choice. But what I think is really interesting is when you get to that point, if you elect early, again, this is for my early folks, there's a thing called an earnings test. And that earnings test says you can collect your benefits early, but if you make too much money, we're going to take some of that Social Security money back. And we're just going to roll it forward so it doesn't get lost. That formula is based on earnings of about $19,000. That's not a lot. Every $2 you make over $19,000, your Social Security is reduced by $1. So it's pretty good rule of thumb is if you plan on working, then don't elect your Social Security benefits early because of the earnings test. Now, that changes when you're 67, or, excuse me, at your FRA. When you get to your FRA, you can make as much money as you want. Bill Gates, I believe, is 66 this year. He can go back into the workforce and not have his Social Security reduced. That's a big deal when thinking about when do you retire or when do you elect your benefits. And again, those benefits are rolled forward if those benefits go down. This is really important. If you have a paper and pen, I'd pull it out right now and write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down the side of the panel, because this is the way that you want to think about making the final decision. Many of us have sort of our gut feel of what we want to do. And obviously there's no one best strategy for claiming. So when you talk to 10 friends, they'll get 10 different opinions of what they did. What they did is up to them. It doesn't have any factor on you. These are the 7 questions you need to be answering. The 3 primary factors we've already covered. Earnings history, top 35 years, right? Election age, early, full, or delayed. And that life expectancy. Again, encourage you to think about the I get to 65 life expectancy. Those are your 3 primary factors when making a decision. But there's 4 other really important decisions that you should look through, or lenses to look through. And the first one is, what is your current health? Or maybe even said, how have you treated your body over those 65 years? What kind of things have you put in? That might factor in how you make your decision. Are you married? We'll talk about those benefits in a little bit. Huge marital status. Do you want to continue working? We talked a little bit about the earnings test. And then have you done a good job saving to give you some flexibility and options? So let's see if we can summarize this. Let's jump to the FRA. So again, full retirement means FRA, you get that full primary insurance amount, right? So that's the full baseline amount. And if you wait to claim till FRA, then you can work and not have your earnings reduced, no earnings test. Of course, as we talked about with your before FRA, you can elect as early as age 62, but the benefits are reduced permanently. And there's the earnings test that we have to take into consideration, which is that roughly $19,000. After full retirement, remember, every month is a credit, right? We don't just have to wait 12 months to get your credit. Every month gives you a credit. If you delay, you get those delayed income credits, which is about 2/3 of 1% or about 8% per year permanently. The last bullet point I'll touch on here in a moment, it talks about the increase doesn't apply to spousal benefits. We'll talk about spousal benefits here in a moment. So we come down to two different categories, single and married. So single's a little bit easier. It really comes down to do it now or do it later. Now let me also clarify, single or married less than 10 years. Let me repeat that, single or married less than 10 years, you fall into this category. Anybody outside that will fall into the married or spousal. So on the spousal side, there's three different categories, three different ways that benefits are calculated. First, we have spousal. So think about that, husband and wife both still alive. Divorced situation, over 10 years. And survivor or widow. My spouse has passed away. Those are three different calculations for benefits, and maybe circle the one that applies to you as we sit here today. And I think this is a cute cartoon. It says, friends with Social Security benefits. I truly believe this is one of the greatest things of Social Security are the spousal benefits. So let's cover what those spousal benefits are. So on that left side, real simply, the spouse, now as I go through this, I'm going to use a stereotypical illustration of, let's just say, maybe the husband was the breadwinner, and let's just say the wife took care of the home and the kids. Let's just use that for illustrative purposes. So that spouse, the one that took care of the house and the kids, she still qualifies for 50% of the breadwinner's PIA, or primary insurance amount. And we'll go through an example here in a minute. As long as they're married at least 1 year, and she's age 62. Now what's important here is in order for her to collect benefits, spousal benefits, the breadwinner needs to elect his benefits. So that's really important. So those are our spousal. Again, we'll go through an example here in a minute. Divorce, very similar. That divorce or ex still qualifies for 50% of their ex-spouse's benefits. As long as they were married 10 years, that ex-spouse is age 62, they're currently unmarried, and as I said earlier, in order for the spousal to get their benefits, the breadwinner needs to elect benefits. That goes away after you've been divorced 2 years, which seems fairly logical. So let's go through an example with Steve and Jackie. So Steve was the breadwinner, Jackie took care of the house and the kids. So when Steve retired, his primary insurance amount was $2,400. So Jackie, of course, qualifies for half of that, right? So her benefits are $1,200. Add those together, that's $3,600 a month. That's about $43,000 per year. That's not insignificant. So that's how it is with our baseline. So let's go through a couple scenarios. So remember, that's the FRA. Jackie collects $1,200 off of Steve. So let's go and say, let's say Jackie elects early. So if she decides to elect early, in this example, she elects 3 years early. So her discount goes from 50% of Steve's benefits to 37.5%. Permanent reduction. So if we do the math, instead of getting 50% of $2,400, she gets 37.5%. So that's about $900. So she loses $300. You say, well, that's insignificant. That's not a lot of money. It isn't. Maybe. Until you multiply that by 12 months, which is $3,600 a year, multiply that by 30 years, that's over $100,000 that potentially was given up. So again, really important to look through this decision. So that's if Jackie elects early. Now, as we said earlier, in order for her to elect her spousal benefits, Steve also needs to elect his early. So I want to make sure that that's clear as well. Now, how about if Jackie wants to delay? Well, we know that Steve can delay up to age 70 if he'd like. Well, Jackie as a spouse can't delay her benefits, so there's no benefit for her to delay past 67. She had an earnings record, yes, but not as a spouse. How about as a survivor? So who is eligible are ex-spouses, as long as you're married at least 9 months, age 60, currently widowed, or remarried after age 60. That's who's eligible for widow's benefits or survivor benefits. Now, what does the survivor actually get? So let's say Jackie again. Jackie would receive the higher of the two benefits. So she would receive Steve's $2,400. Now, she could take those benefits early as age 60, but again, she would have the discount, and those benefits would be reduced permanently. And if Jackie decided to go back into the workforce, that earnings test does apply. And the last bullet point just talks about dual eligible. She can jump back and forth. So if she had an earnings record, she could elect that and go to spousal and back and forth. So there's some flexibility if you have an earnings record as well. And I want to go back on this and put Steve and Jackie, and I want to really emphasize this because this is important. We said when Steve passes away, Jackie gets what? She gets Steve's benefit at $2,400. Why do I talk about this? Is some of you are sitting out there right now with term insurance that's going to be expiring the next couple of years, and you say, well, I don't really need it anymore because the kids are in college. I don't need my term insurance. Well, in this scenario, how much did the household lose per month? $1,200 per month. That's $14,000 a year. That's not insignificant. That is very much a reason why people continue to own some life insurance, is to protect that, if I could use the term, pension in retirement. Okay, claiming considerations. I think what we're going to do is I think we have one last poll, and I appreciate everybody participating in the poll. And this is actually going back, and we're going to repeat a poll that we did earlier. I thought this would be interesting to see how was my impact today. Did I indirectly direct you one way or another? But it's basically the same question. Now that we've had a chance to talk through how Social Security works, especially early FRA or delayed, now as we're sitting there, how are you feeling? Are you feeling like you're going to take it early? Are you feeling you're going to take it at FRA? Or are you feeling like you're going to delay? I'm just curious, or I have no clue, Mike, I'm more confused than I was before I started this conversation. So any one of these is fine. So again, I thank everybody for participating. 12 out of 15, so we picked up a couple in the delayed, and thank you for sharing, by the way. Thank you for participating in the polls. I think it's fun, and hopefully you find it interesting what your peers feel as well. And I'm not here to sit here to say everybody should go and delay, but again, I think it's interesting that we've all taken a lot away from this conversation. So claiming considerations as we try to wind things down. So as a general rule, if you're going to continue working, don't elect early. That's a general rule. Spousal election decisions can have a significant impact. And I think this is interesting because I feel that there's a lot of these decisions made in a silo. I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation where a spouse says, well, she or he is making that decision. This decision should be coordinated with couples. They should be bringing this decision together because, as we talked about, there's huge benefits for the spouses. Those delayed income credits, the last bullet point, you can have a great strategy of delaying those income credits for the higher earner because, remember, whoever stays on the planet the longest will continue to collect the higher benefit. Those delayed income credits can garner a lot of money for many, many years. It's a huge strategy to use. Okay, I don't know if anybody's sitting out there that has elected their Social Security benefits in the last 12 months and wants to change. Normally that doesn't happen, but technically there's a provision that says if you've elected your benefits within the last 12 months, you can change your mind. You can withdraw your application, pay all the money back, and you can reapply later. Doesn't happen often, but if you're sitting out there and you've elected your benefits, you technically have the ability to make the change. Okay, let's move into taxes. And I like this face because this is the face I see on people's face when I talk about, do you know how or if your Social Security is going to be taxed? They say, what? My Social Security is going to be taxed? And all I got to do is flip to this. There's a lot of numbers. usdebtclock.org. This tells us upper left-hand corner that we are currently $30 trillion in debt. And if we're going to buy stuff in the future, we're going to pay our debt, we pay that through taxes. And I'm not here to say taxes are going to go up or down, but there's a very high likelihood that things might change, certainly for the generations coming behind us. Taxes is a really important conversation, and we do have that conversation, taxes in retirement, coming up in July. So if this strikes a nerve, make sure you come back and talk with us and sit through the conversation in July. Because Social Security taxation, let me set the stage on Social Security. Social Security may be taxed or it may not be taxed. Hopefully that's helpful. How do they determine that? Well, they actually create a different kind of income. Now, we've been taught lots of different kinds of income. Gross income, net income, adjusted gross income, modified adjusted gross income. Now add to that list provisional income. Provisional income is a special little calculation that is only around to determine if your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed. What's interesting was this was put in place, I believe, early 80s. The same table that was put in place 40 years ago is the same table we're using today. The table where very few people paid taxes on their Social Security years ago, many people are paying taxes on their Social Security today. And this is what the table is. And so there's a table for single and there's a table for joint. Let's just focus on the joint for discussion today. So if you show in provisional income under $32,000, your Social Security is income tax-free. Home run. If you make between 32 and 44, I shouldn't say make, if your provisional income is between 32 and 44,000, 50% of your Social Security is subject to taxation. If your provisional income is over 44,000, 85% of your Social Security benefits are subject to taxation. Those are not tax rates. You're still going to pay tax at your normal rate. It's just how much of your Social Security has to be taxed. So again, if you're in the 32 to 44%, 50% is subject to tax. We have a presentation coming up called The Power of Zero in September. And the Power of Zero is how do you get to the zero tax bracket? And there's strategies that we share in that presentation that help us potentially get to a point where Social Security is not taxed. So let's figure out, how does provisional income actually get calculated? Well, first things first is half of our Social Security is put into the calculation. Then basically everything else. Your wages, interest, dividends, qualified plan distribution, IRA distribution, all that stuff counts towards provisional income. And for those of you investing in muni bonds, that interest is layered on top as well. So there's only basically 4 things that you can invest in or that don't fall into the calculation of provisional income. Pull out your pen and paper. You might want to write these down. Again, we talk about these in September for Power of Zero. Roth 401k contributions, Roth IRA contributions, Roth conversions. We're actually doing a presentation in August on Roth conversions. We'll put that into the mix. Health savings account, and then cash value life insurance. That is it, other than potentially some reverse mortgage or home mortgage benefits as well. There are very few things on the planet that don't go towards provisional income. Then there's the Medicare consideration. So Medicare typically, those costs, that Part B cost typically comes out of your Social Security benefits. If you're coming up on Medicare, which is age 65, right? We talked about all these numbers. Medicare hasn't changed. Social Security's moved to 67 for full benefits. Medicare stays at 65. If you're coming up to Medicare, make sure you're reaching out to the Alexander and Haberman team. If you have friends and family who are on Medicare and they're confused, make sure you're talking to the experts at Alexander and Haberman to help you navigate Medicare. But there's a cost to Part B Medicare that's going to come out of your Social Security benefits as well. That number right now is somewhere between $170 a month and $500 a month, depending on income. Then government pensions. I'm going to skip past this because we don't see or hear a lot about government benefit pensions, but if you are sitting out there and you know you have a government pension, either the GPO, which is the government pension offset, or the WEP, the windfall elimination provision, you're going to want to talk to us individually. Take a picture of this slide because things operate slightly different. Okay, how do I file benefits? There's essentially 3 ways, or in today's post-COVID world, really 2 ways. Phone and online are typically your 2 ways to elect benefits. You used to be able to go in for an in-person. Most of those are phone interviews these days. The people at the Social Security Administration are wonderful, but remember, their job is to give facts, not opinions, not advice. So if you want factual information, they're very helpful. Things like divorce benefits, et cetera, they're wonderful to talk to, and you can talk to them well before you file your benefits. Okay, as we start to come to the conclusion here, I wanted to remind everybody, again, we've got these 4 more workshops coming over the course of the summer. Taxes and retirement, we touched on a little bit. We talked a little bit about Roth conversions, which is a narrowing of the conversation of taxes and retirement. Power of Zero, which is a tax planning strategy, and then some long-term care hybrid strategies as well. So make sure you get those in your calendar and participate Zoom or in person. Now, there's a lot of confusion. I shared a lot of how things work, but what we found is the complementary custom analysis is a gift that we give to people. It's a great tool that we use to help people at least get an idea of how they should plan their Social Security benefits. We have a Social Security timing report. It's 16 pages, and it's very helpful in determining what my benefits are. It helps from my retirement income to election. Very, very beneficial. So thank you for all of you attending today. And as a thank you to you, our organization is willing to do a complimentary, no-cost custom analysis for you. Well, how do you get it? So hopefully you've all had a chance to chat. You can go ahead and just chat report, and then hopefully we'll be able to capture that. The other thing you can chat as well is if you want the recording of this workshop, we're happy to push this out. Might take a day or 2. Or if there's any of those old recordings we spoke about at the beginning, if there's any of those, just go ahead and put the title in there. Or if you want all 4 of last series, we're happy to send those to you as well. So feel free to use the chat. We will capture that information. Or if you just want to email us directly, you can go ahead and just email me directly, and then I can help you get the information that you ultimately need to make your decision. So in conclusion, Social Security and Medicare are the foundation of that pyramid. So please don't make the decision passively. I compliment you for taking the time today to learn about what you should probably be doing. Understand those options, and things may change by the time you get to a point of electing your benefits, but make sure you take the time to understand it. And then look through the 7 considerations as the lens to making your final decision. And then lastly, we're happy to be a resource, whether it's through a timing report, whether it's to answer a question, whether it's to provide advice, we're happy to be a resource for you as well. So I'd like to again thank Brittany, Joshua, the Alexander and Haberman team for the opportunity to be here. I compliment everybody for taking the time to join us for this conversation. I think we're going to stick around here and answer some of those chats or some questions that have come up. But I want to thank you again, Brittany, and the team for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to thank everyone for attending Alexander and Haberman's Summer Speaker Series and today's presentation, Social Security Planning. Our great thanks go to Mike Becker with Legacy Financial Partners and all of our team, including Joshua and Caleb for setting everything up, Aaron and Todd for running today's technology, as well as Zena, Christian, Jackie, Nicole, Beth, Jamie. To request a recording of any of Alexander and Haberman's Summer Speaker Series workshops, or previous ones, email workshops@mnhealthagents.com. Alexander and Haberman is a specialty firm focused on assisting with Medicare Advantage, supplements, and Part D plans, as well as individual and family health insurance on and off exchange, and group benefits, including health, dental, vision, and disability. And for those of you who are able to stick around, we do have a Q&A session with Mike. So thank you so much for being here today, Mike.
Thank you. That was fun.
Good.
It was. I'm losing my voice. I feel like I'm screaming at the screen here. So
I mean, you were
it was fun. I
disseminating.
get fired up about Social Security.
You were disseminating a lot of amazing knowledge.
You.
So we're very grateful for that.
Happy to do it.
So let me start off by with the first question.
Okay.
So my spouse is self-employed.
Okay.
They've been advised to keep their income low to pay as little in tax today as possible. Will that strategy negatively affect our Social Security benefits?
No, I think that's an awesome question. The answer always is maybe, but some things I think to consider is those recommendations probably started many years ago when tax rates were a lot higher than they are today, Brittany. And we are at historic lows. So rethinking that, and again, when I take a look at retirement income plans for a lot of consumers, Social Security is such a massive portion of their retirement income. And anything you can do to increase those benefits is huge. Now, why do I say maybe? Well, that other spouse may be the breadwinner, and there might be some strategies to really parlay or attach to the breadwinner's Social Security benefits. So it may not be that big of a deal, but I would say definitely think about it and definitely have a conversation, accountant or somebody more specifically about increasing it. But again, 35 years is what you need, 35 good years. So you can have some that you depress a little bit, but some of those years you probably want to have that are pretty big.
Great. All right, next question. I am divorced. If I elect benefits of my ex-husband, will he be negatively affected in any way?
Yeah, I think of that. I get that question all the time, by the way, and I think it's funny because sometimes people are like, I'm really concerned about that affecting him, or I want to stick it to him. So I guess how that comes across, but either way, it doesn't affect it. And I had a conversation last week, and gal's like, he's on his third marriage. I'm like, so that kills the Social Security system, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact she or he, whoever that ex-spouse is. They won't even know if somebody's electing on their benefits.
Okay. You mentioned that having additional savings provides more options with Social Security elections. What are some of the best places to save money without negatively affecting Social Security benefits?
Sure. I think that's another good question. I get that a lot too, and I think sometimes in life and in finance specifically, we overthink things too. Like, is this better than that? Do something, right? Do something is better than nothing. Now, one thing that just globally I'm partial to, because again, when I start taking a look at what's happening from a fiscal perspective and seeing that we're $30 trillion in debt, I know what's likely to happen to tax rates in the future. And I get to deal with this every single day with people who've done a great job saving in 401ks, and they have no tax diversification. And I really think that depending on what you're doing today, if you can start filling that tax-free bucket, you're going to have more options, and you're going to be so thankful. Again, Roth 401k contributions, Roth IRA contributions, Roth conversions. We have a workshop coming up on that. Health savings accounts and permanent life insurance are the vehicles that you want to be thinking about. But if that's too complicated, just do something to make sure you're saving.
Sounds good. You also mentioned that companies are innovating around the idea of Social Security benefits being reduced in the future. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because this is becoming very much a concern. Again, these are conversations we're having every day, and we've always sort of downplayed it. We're like, Brittany, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. Well, the Congress hasn't even sniffed this topic in forever. And so 2034, 2035 is right around the corner. So I think this is becoming a bigger reality, that there's going to be some kind of discount. Likely not 23%, but again, whatever it is. So there's companies out there in the annuity space that are creating rider benefits that basically say, if this event happens, we're going to give you extra benefits. We're going to make that benefit whole. So there's definitely there's a lot of thinking around that, and there are a few products out there that now have benefits that are there to attack this problem.
Great. If I want my benefits to start in October, when should I talk with the Social Security office?
Today. I mean, I think that there's no reason to wait. I think it's always helpful, as I alluded to earlier, the Social Security people will give them the facts, right? Here's what your survivor benefits are, or here are your divorced benefits, to get all the facts. And then sometimes you might want to take a step back and have a conversation or look at a timing report to make the final decision. But it doesn't hurt to go ahead and elect today and then just get that off your plate. And then, as I said earlier, is you have technically 1 year to withdraw that application. So if you submitted your application today, and let's say a month and a half from now, you're like, just talk to somebody, I don't like that strategy, I want to do something else, you can withdraw that one time in your life, so this is not something you do regularly, and it's no problem. No problem. So I'd say start talking to the Social Security office, but they can, maybe the other part of that question is, how long does it take for a benefit to start? And I think they can do it within 4 weeks or so.
Okay.
So that's what they do every day is send checks. So they flip those over pretty quick.
Okay, great.
Great question.
Are you familiar with the windfall elimination provision and its impact on Social Security income? Because I earn a pension from working in state government, my understanding is that my Social Security income will be decreased because of my pension, even though I paid in FICA when I was employed in the private sector.
Yeah, so that might be a good question offline to talk about. We had that slide that had the WEP and the GPO that goes through the differences. But I think it comes down to if you did pay into FICA or didn't pay into FICA, that the difference. So if I could maybe defer that one very specific question like that to a one-on-one.
Okay. I'm divorced and receive pension from my ex who was a judge. Will that pension income jeopardize my Social Security?
Will that pension income jeopardize Social Security? So assuming, this is back to, I've never gotten, in doing this as many times as I have, any questions around governmental pensions, so thank you. But this might be a governmental pension question, or if it's technically a governmental pension, if it's a judge, it's likely it is. It could potentially, your Social Security might be reduced a little bit. So it's really understanding, is it a GPO, government pension offset, or the windfall option? That's going to tell you if the Social Security is reduced.
Sounds
So
good.
I hate to, sometimes when we get into these very micro-specific questions, it's hard to give generalities around that because there's lots of little nuances. So I hate to give the wrong answer, but those are two very specific where those might be good offline conversations.
Sounds good. If I elect the spousal benefit at 62, assuming my spouse has already elected,
Okay.
can I then stop that and claim my own benefits at 65 or 67?
Yes.
Simple. I like it.
And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to take those early benefits and then you want to let those, we call cook, right? So you get back to FRA or
Yeah.
potentially delayed income credits. Absolutely what you'd like to do.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great question.
If they change Social Security benefits after 2035 or sooner, and you have started claiming Social Security, will adjustments change your amount?
So there's maybe two ways that I'm thinking about that question. So the way that Social Security is likely to change is more on things like the FRA going from 67 to 69, or there's actually a cap of how, when somebody makes a certain amount of money, once they make over that, they don't pay into the system. So maybe reducing that. So those changes are likely to change for the system, and that wouldn't impact people's benefits. So that's sort of the way that it's likely that the Social Security system gets fixed. Now, where we are all being threatened, if I could use that, because that's right in the Social Security system, the trustee report where they say could be discounted 77%. If we get to 2033, 34, 35, and we get to that point, then everybody will be affected. It might not be 77%, might be 84, but everybody on benefits, whether you're 110 or 68, will have a reduction in benefits.
Okay. did you say that you have to be married 10 years before your spouse can submit for spousal benefits? Or can I file at my filing age and then have my spouse file? At that point, we will have been married 8 years. In this specific case, the spouse is 3 years younger and is not eligible for their own Social Security.
Okay. There's a lot of words in there. So I think what I heard was if I've only been married 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, do I qualify for spousal benefits?
Well, in this case, will my spouse qualify for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, remember you got 3 categories, right? You've got spousal, so that's just purely married, right? Then you have ex-spouse, and then you have widow's benefits. So if you're married over 1 year, then you're gonna be able to collect spousal benefits.
I believe the 10 years applied to the ex-spouse. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. If you get a pension and need to find out whether it is offset or windfall, who is the answer?
Who has the answer? The pension company. So you're typically going to get a payment, you're going to get statements, then you can go ahead and just reach back out to those folks. Those that I've seen, they do a pretty good job of keeping that windfall or the GPO, or they keep that pretty loud and in front and center as far as what kind of program it is. But you go back right to the administrator and they'll have that question.
Okay, sounds good.
And while I'm on that topic too, is remember I mentioned that Social Security Administration, those people are pretty helpful with factual information. So you can call those folks too and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is look up my record. What does it look like that I'm going to get? And they tend to be pretty good and be able to help with the accuracy of those benefits.
Okay. Another one just popped up.
Sure.
I am married and my wife doesn't have any credit. If I start getting Social Security after my FRA, say 70 years old, would my wife be paid 50% of what I would be paid?
Correct. Remember, and I sort of used that example of breadwinner, stay at home, right? So that was to illustrate they didn't have 40 credits. So that person always qualifies for spousal benefits.
Okay, sounds good. I know a couple of questions might still trickle in, but once again, just want to say thank you so much for being here today and enlightening all of us. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who attended, especially those who participated in the polls and asking questions. And thank you so much to everyone at Alexander and Haberman who made this possible. It looks like I did get one more question in. It says, if I'm 69 and still working and collecting half my spouse's Social Security, should I still wait till 70 to collect my Social Security? I am the larger earner.
So if you are in a position where you don't need the income and you are the breadwinner and you have the ability, I would take advantage of those delayed income credits. So again, 0.2% every month, and that larger benefit is permanent, right? So that's for both spouses. One of you tips over dead, the other one will take that. So that's huge. So at 69 to 70, it might only be a couple percentage points, but again, a couple percentage points over a whole bunch of years probably is going to be a big benefit.
Perfect.
So in general, if you can delay things, delay things.
Sounds good.
Great questions.
So I know a few people are asking about reviewing the presentation. As a reminder, please email workshops, that's plural, workshops at MN, like Minnesota, Health Agents, also plural, .com, and we're happy to pass the recording along to you and whatnot. Also, if you have more specific questions for Mike, you're welcome to reach out to that same email address, and we're happy to connect you. Anything else you want to share with us today?
No, I had a lot of fun today. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good.
Brittany.
Well, we did too. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.